Today on Book Break, we are rediscovering poetry. If you're anything like me, when you think of poetry, you might think of all of those poems that you had to learn at school, which required hours and hours of studying them to try and understand what they meant. I always found poetry not very accessible. But when I saw that this year's National Poetry Day theme was change, I wanted to see how much poetry has changed since I was at school. So I spent the last few days completely lost in some of the newest and most exciting poetry collections coming out of Macmillan this year. I've been reading them aloud, really playing with the form of poetry, and it turns out that the landscape of poetry really is so different now. It's so much more accessible and it's so much broader than the narrow definition that I had in my head of what poetry means. So if you're a poetry novice like me, or if you've always loved poetry but you just really want to know what's coming up next, here's a selection that I found the most exciting of some of the new poetry collections coming out right now. So first up, I've got Running Upon the Wires, which is the latest collection from Kate Tempest, and I really love the way that this book is structured. So it's got 3 sections: the end, the middle and the beginning, and it's all about the end of one relationship and going through heartbreak, and then the joy of starting a new relationship, and then also that middle bit in between where you're still not fully over the last relationship but you are starting to fall for the new person and get excited about the new love that's beginning. So there are so many really lovely lines in this poetry book that everyone will find relatable in some way to their life, but I'm going to read out my favourite bit, just one verse of one of the poems, which I loved because it felt so everyday and such a real part of a relationship. So this is from a poem called We Bought New Sheets, and this is the last verse. Night buzzes around us. We shake it till it billows, then snap it tight. Pull its edges and fold it under, like a pair of real adults. I just really loved that bit. So that was Running Upon the Wires by Kate Tempest. Next up, I've got England, Poems from a School, and this is a collection edited by Kate Clanchy, and it's such a wonderful idea. So Kate Clanchy works as a writer-in-resident at Oxford Spires School in Oxford, and that's a school that is attended by a lot of the immigrant children in Oxford. So it's this amazingly diverse student body. Everyone is a minority there, including the white students. There are over 30 languages spoken at the school, and Kate Clanchy has been mentoring them to write poetry. So this is a really, really beautiful collection, and I'm so sure that this is the beginning of the careers of so many of the students in this book. They're going to go on to be the exciting new poets of the next generation. And I think the verse that best sums up this collection is right at the beginning. This is again the last few lines of a poem called I Want a Poem by Shukriya Rezai. Let your poetry texture the blank paper like a prism splitting light. Don't leave without seeing all the colours. I think that so perfectly sums this up, and I'm so excited to see what's going to come next from the writers in this book. Some of them are only 12, they go all the way up to 18. I just think the really exciting things are going to happen from them. And then I've got The New Testament by Jericho Brown. And this one's really clever because he takes biblical stories and he subverts them to tell his story and his experience of being a black gay man living in America. And it's a great mix of talking at a political level and also talking on a really personal level. And my favourite bit in this one, this is in the middle of a poem called Heart Condition. I wonder the other like any African American. Africa with its condition and America with its condition, and black folk born in this nation content to carry half of each. I shoulder my share. I found that bit particularly moving, but there are so many really, really moving moments in this collection. Now, one thing I was really excited to see when I was exploring all these different poetry collections is to see how much poetry there is out there now for children. So I looked at Everything All at Once by Stephen Camden, and this is full of poems about things that are relatable to young children and all the things that they might not necessarily be able to put into words. So it's talking about their friendships, and it's talking about school and struggling to listen in lessons and all of these things that are really important to children. And I think it's really great that there's poetry for them to be able to relate their experiences to. There were loads in here that were really fun, but I'm going to show you my favourite one. It was called Outside French. I'm just going to read the whole thing because it's really short. I'm a dot in one of those pictures made up of dots, the ones where you zoom out and see the face of Yoda. Only in this one, when you zoom out, you just see me, much older. And like, that still speaks to me now, and especially when I was young. It really speaks to that experience that you have as a child of just constantly waiting to grow up and waiting to feel free and in your life, and actually then realising that you are part of your future self. This is you on your way there. I just thought that was really great. And now moving on to a slightly different type of collection. So as well as looking at brand new poetry, I've also been looking at new collections that take older poems but put them together and help you to see them in a new light. So for example, this wonderful collection, She is Fierce, put together by Anna Sampson. So this is a collection of poems by women from ancient times all the way up to present day. Some of these poems I'd never seen before, some of them I had read, but seeing them together in this brand new context of celebrating womanhood and exploring the female experience really just painted them in a whole new light for me. In this book, it feels like we're spanning the generations and exploring what it is to be a woman and what it has meant, how it's changed, what's always been the same. These really undefinable qualities that there is no answer to, but having a whole book like this of poetry is like hearing all these different opinions of what it might mean to be a woman. And then another way that I wouldn't have thought of bringing new light to poems is through the illustrations. So this is Poems to Live Your Life By, a collection of poems chosen by Chris Riddell and then illustrated. So they've got all these really gorgeous pictures throughout, illustrating a lot of very well-known poems, some that I hadn't heard before, but all ones that obviously mean something to him. And seeing his pictures of them felt like hearing someone analyse a poem that they love. Sometimes you might read a poem and it might mean one thing to you, and then when you hear someone else describing what it means to them, it's totally different, and it's really lovely to see their interpretation. And seeing Chris Riddell's illustrations of the poems felt like that. It felt like this very personal moment of hearing him explain why he likes these poems. And one of the ones where I thought that worked the best was in the poem I Miss You. So he really spreads out each line of the poem, illustrates each bit, and it really did make me enjoy the poem more because each sentence has this whole longing captured within it. It's so wonderfully done. And there's even one whole page that doesn't have any of the writing, it's just this gap. It's just longing for the person where they're missing on this page. It's really amazing seeing what illustrations can do for a book. So those are all the books that I've got with me today, but I've got one more to mention. While we're talking about change ahead in the poetry landscape, there's a really brilliant collection coming out later this year, and that is the last collection by Carol Ann Duffy in her role as the Poet Laureate. It's called Sincerity, and it's all about remembrance, which is pretty fitting as we remember her last 10 years in that role. And now that I've spent some time exploring what poetry looks like today, I'm really excited to see who will be the next to take the Poet Laureate role and what they will do to change the poetry landscape even further. So do leave me a comment letting me know what your favourite poetry collection is, and if you've always liked poetry or if it's something you've rediscovered newly like me. And do give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and hit that subscribe button below because we post new videos every Thursday. And next week on Book Break, we're going to be looking at the lost characters of the Jungle Book. See you next time.